Welcome to this week's episode of Beauty Babble. Today we're talking about life after aesthetic school, and we are joined by Maylene, certified esthetician, who's going to fill us in on how the last year and a half have been for her. Hi, Maylene.
Hi. So, Maylene, it's been a year and a half after grad. Tell us what it's been like.
Very interesting, lots of learning curves, and
Can you be specific? Like, what was your biggest, if you can say, or your top 3 learnings that you maybe were surprised about, or that you were pleasantly surprised about, or shockingly surprised about?
Unpleasantly.
Yeah.
I'd say learning how it is, like, in the real-life world, rather than kind of fake scenarios in school, which has been a little bit different.
Do you have a story about that?
Not specifically right now. I'd say kind of going with the flow of having cancellations and, like, walk-ins rather than having, like, a set schedule.
So having to adapt quickly
exactly.
to the changes in your day?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you find for preparing for those last-minute walk-ins?
There's not really much you can prepare. You just kind of have to learn to go with the flow, and always be ready for anything.
Expect the unexpected.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so true. It can be challenging, those walk-ins,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're just, finished off a treatment and you're not cleaned.
Exactly, yeah. You have to have things ready to go.
Mm-hmm. So did you find that you had to kind of change your mindset about how to prepare for these things, or was it an easy transition?
No, it took a few times to...
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And that's what this is about, is just being honest and helping others that are maybe in school right now or just starting out to see the challenges are normal. I had the same thing when I finished school 30-some years ago, and it hasn't changed. So if you look at it, when you finish school of any kind of training, these are the bumps you go through, and you get the best you can get out of the education side. They try to give you what they can, but like you said, the real life world of it is a huge teaching tool to
definitely
go through, and every person every time is going to be probably present itself differently, right?
Yeah.
I always think too, part of it is, that thing, if you're not cleaning right after your service and you're like, I'm just going to go grab a snack, then I'll clean.
Yeah.
Clean first.
Exactly.
Then grab your snack, because that's when your walk-in client will come in.
Yeah, when you least expect.
Yeah.
And you think you have more time to do something.
Absolutely.
Get it done first, and then...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you find that the clients maybe notice that? That
I
you
definitely
didn't look prepared? Or is that something you felt? Or
yeah, you can feel when they kind of see you maybe rushing a little bit or seem a little unfocused with...
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely something they can pick up on.
Right, especially if you're in the hair salon and a client all of a sudden they put you on the spot saying, Maylene, do you have time for brow wax?
Yeah,
shaping?
and then it's like they're right there.
Yes. And they're right there in front of you, and it's probably the first time you're meeting them too, right? Mm-hmm. So we all know how important those first impressions are too. And you managed to ease it into it and make it all good for them, I'm sure.
Yeah. Eventually with practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What you said there was a few other things. So that was one challenge about those last minute, be ready for the changes. And have you ever had it during a service where a client you think is coming in for one thing and it turns out it's completely different and you're all set up and ready to go?
That's happened, but more so with you think they're just getting one service and then ends up being a little more than that, which has been okay. Like, depending on your schedule, sometimes you'll have to push back a few clients, which happens sometimes by a few minutes.
And how did you handle that?
It was okay. I just kind of give a heads up to the next person to let them know you might be running a few minutes behind, just so that they're prepared.
Good. And did you have to do that yourself, or did you have someone?
No, luckily, usually we had like a receptionist to call ahead.
Mm-hmm. So really important, that communication, giving them heads up, especially if they're rushing to come see you.
Yeah,
and then come in and find out you're 15, 20 minutes or half.
It's better to let them know as soon as possible so they're not...
Right.
Do you have an example of that happening?
Like I've had, like, say a Brazilian wax, and then they wanted to do their brows on top of that, which isn't too much longer, but just to let the next person you have know.
Yeah.
because I'd have like
brows can take a while,
Yeah.
especially if you've never had that person before. 'Cause
Yeah.
now you have to figure out their face, their contour,
Yeah.
what would they like,
Yeah.
So for sure, I could see that taking some time.
Side note, I had once a client come in to get their brows done, and they brought a picture, but their brows look nothing like the picture. And that was before I did microblading, and I was like, how about we work with the shape you have?
That's been something that comes up when your client wants something that you can't provide that exact thing for them, but you kind of have to communicate and let them know how close you can get to that, or it's better to always let them know beforehand.
Do you find that you learned that more so when you got out into the industry?
Yeah.
Because how do they prepare you in school for something like that, right?
We were always told to let our client know how long they need to grow their hair out and things like that, but once I got into working in aesthetics, I don't know if we had a policy up about it, so once I had a lady that came in and her hair was too short. So that was something I had to prepare for, to let her know it might not all come up.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's important to set your policies and instructions.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Good. And then it's consistent, especially if you're working with others. So I have to ask a hard question now.
Okay.
My favorite.
Have you had the situation of a disappointed or upset client for whatever it was, that you were running late or you couldn't provide the shape of the brow they wanted, or you know what I mean by the scenarios that are out there? Did you have that happen yet?
I
that
have.
Challenging client that you kind of makes you step back a couple steps and say, whoa, I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah. Though I was just actually mentioning part of it, how one lady came in and her hair was a little too short for the service. She was getting a few waxes done, so during her first one, I let her know kind of in the middle of the service that it might not all come out, which was my mistake. I should have let her know before, because you always want to have them expect less and then provide more, just so they're more...
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good statement.
Just so they're not disappointed. You always want to provide the best, and sometimes their hair is too short. There's nothing you can do about it. Let's grow it out, of course, but...
how did she react?
She wasn't too happy with it. I think more of the circumstances, she was going on a trip. She was about to leave. It was kind of, disappointing. So part of it was my fault in not letting her know right away. But also another part was not knowing myself if it would all come off too. So I could have let her know, but I guess I didn't know the rule of thumb on how long or it should be since shaving or whatever.
Did you ask her, like, when the last time you shaved or waxed?
Kind of did after I let her know that this might not all come off, but
Yes, we're going to have a discussion on the importance of consultation.
Yes.
In all services, right?
Very
and
important.
We use a lot of it for maybe a brief thing on the phone for the waxing, make sure it's half an inch long or a quarter of an inch or whatever the policies are. But we definitely, I think, do a better job when it comes to facials, because we sit down and that's part of the training. But I think it's a statement that we need to recognize that if you do it at the beginning of a service or the pre-consultation on the phone, there's questions that you can ask that client, like going on a trip, do you have a special occasion? You can start preparing that client to what to expect, what eases off you, the service provider, right? That's already been given if possible, right?
Yeah.
So,
Especially waxing. I feel like waxing is one of those services where it seems like everybody thinks it's like really easy and you're just going to go in and out. But that is an important one too, especially over the phone.
Especially as the service provider, you're used to doing it all the time, so you kind of know what's going to happen. But for them, you don't. It could be the first time ever, so...
Yeah, so if you treat them like it's their first time, every time, maybe, we kind of fall into complaints and comfort, and we forget to mention it. So we cover our bases every time. And so I always found for me what helped was, having a busy day booked back to back. I'd look in my morning, I'd come in a little earlier. No, I wasn't on the clock. I would just do it for myself, so I was prepared and look at my day and say, okay, I've got this going on, this. So then I kind of had my head ready for my morning had my lunch and then sometimes have lunch. Depending how busy things are, run behind, things happen, but there's always time for it. And then prepare myself for afternoon, right?
Yeah.
And then those last minute doing a pedicure, and Suzanne, do you have time for like a quick brow shaping? It's like, let me just check my schedule. And sometimes I could do it. And I was like, because that's something I always tried, was like you said, what was your statement again about to help them to expect?
You want to prepare them for kind of less than what you're
so
gonna
when you
give them?
deliver more,
Exactly.
it's like a big...
They're more
bigger statement.
grateful to it, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You don't want to overpromise.
Exactly. That's,
Overpromise, under-deliver, that
exactly.
kind of statement.
Yeah.
Do you find that... I'm not sure if you know of anyone else, if you kept in touch with anyone from school, but do you think this is common, like, for a lot of grads after?
Yeah, definitely. Like, we kind of had an idea, like, for the waxing one again, how long it should be, but there was never really, like, the rule of thumb. So at that moment when I had that client, I didn't know the 3 to 4 week period, which I couldn't tell her. So I kind of had to say, I don't think it's going to all come off.
Oh, yeah. That's
Right.
tough.
Yeah. So what has been one of the most positive, surprising? These are actually all good, though, because it helps you grow as a service provider. It's so important because you've learned tools now, what to use and how to say things, and maybe different people's personalities. I mean, that's something that they never touch on in school.
Yeah.
Is personalities and how to speak to different people.
Exactly.
And how to work with different people and still honor yourself. Right? You're still you, and you're the professional, you're the provider, but you will have to deliver the message probably 10 different ways in its same day. What was something that you felt was surprisingly positive, that whether you have a story or a scenario or something that you discovered that was like, wow, I didn't realize how important that was and how good it feels to be this way or to say this, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it was always important to be confident during your service, during consultation, service, and then afterwards as well, if you have to give it aftercare. Just because I think the client will feel more confident and better about how the service is going to go when you feel like you're going to give a good service.
Right. And when you finally had that full connection, how did it make you feel?
Really good. Yeah.
Really good, like, yes.
That was a good one.
That one. That was a good one, right? I know those are the best feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta celebrate those moments, because sometimes it's not the case.
Exactly.
Sir, you could have done everything. Have you had that happen yet?
Yeah.
You've done everything in what you could do, and you thought it went really well, and for whatever reason, it's still. I mean, I could go on with many stories. Not that it was a horrible thing, but.
Yeah.
In the end, what I learned from all that is a lot of times it's not us, the provider.
Exactly.
It's what's going on in their day.
Yeah.
And I remember that first, aha moment, if you wish, of, oh, it's not me.
Yeah.
It's them. And that was quite a while ago, but I remember the client, and all of a sudden she was just really, really upset. And I can't remember what the reason was. That's too long ago. I just remember the experience and the feeling. And she said, you just don't understand. And I actually said, well, help me understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And then she broke down and cried. She goes, I just found out my mom was sick. And like, it was a lot of personal. And, and then just ironically, I said, well, why don't you just come sit down over here and I'll make you a tea. You don't need to leave yet. And like, she goes, I don't? I said, no, come over here. I'll find you a space. Sat her down. I said, have a tea in a private room. And then the music was going. And I said, take your time, and if there's something else we can do, I'll come check in on you in a few minutes. And she just said, oh my God, that was the best thing you could have done. And it had nothing to do with the service anymore. It was just, that is what the final
how you treat your
on the cake was. And the cherry left on the cake, as they say. Yeah. But, I mean, you could still try it, and it's still.
Yeah, you can do everything right in the service, but still have someone unhappy, which is that happens. But as long as you did everything.
And then the other thing
within your ability to do. Yeah.
And then what about, like, how did your day go? Like, when it doesn't settle, how do you, like, shake that off and be ready for your next client who comes in all excited to say, hi, Malie, I'm here. Right? And you're just like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you try and, like, think, what did I do wrong? But I don't know, sometimes it's not always you, but
It isn't. And I think sometimes it's personality.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't click with your client, or they don't click with you. You're just not the right fit for them, and they have to find somebody who is the right fit. I think that has a lot to do with it. So you try your best, and sometimes it's not in your control.
Yeah, in the moment, you turn into a chameleon a little bit, so that at least they have something positive to say.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's a huge part that I think we miss just in our customer service in general today.
Yeah.
And when you're building a clientele and you're trying to grow your clientele or your business, you have to recognize that no, the customer's not always right. They're almost always right.
Yeah.
Almost.
Within reason.
Yeah. And if you work for someone else, then you have that ability to pass that on when they want to see a manager, right? Or someone above or someone who they can speak to about it. But when you're your own boss, you're self-employed, you're doing your own thing, you are it. So you even have to have more tools in your toolbox on how to handle those things. But like you said, it's so important to have those policies and procedures in place of what to expect. And that's a huge thing, I think, that a lot of trial and errors when you discover how important they are, but to have it pre-set up before you even begin is really important.
Yeah. I think when you have a wide set of clientele, you kind of have to adapt your personality to fit with them and their needs. Yeah. Like if you have a little bit of an older client, the topics you discuss kind of, if you talk during your appointment, kind of what you discuss and how you say things is a little bit different for each person.
And did you always know that? Like, is
no,
that
it was something I learned as I went.
You went on? Very interesting.
Yeah.
Like culturally, my upbringing was a level of respect for someone older than me.
Yeah.
So I already had that in my life, but I knew friends or colleagues that never had that, and they would just get like reamed out by the client. I was like, well, why would you talk to the client? Like I was shocked, and I realized, my upbringing helped me with my career and my job experiences and everything that I was doing prior to this industry, even though I started young, but I started working really young. But I was just kind of curious if that's part of it, because that's why I'm sharing it, because sometimes if you don't realize that, it's,
Yeah, I don't think some people don't maybe have that as they grew up, but for me, I kind of felt like I tried to be respectful to everyone, but then with some people, I didn't have to feel as reserved, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to kind of mesh with their personalities more.
Do you find that, now I'm on to another thing, what about the conversations behind the door with the client? Because I know, the stuff that my clients would say, and I would just listen and, okay, and no judgment. I knew that really quick, never judge, and it's okay. Or when they're having very difficult times, and I remember, clients, I had them for 10 years, and then hearing their terrible things that are going on in their lives, and how it just like, it's heart-wrenching to hear it. And some of the conversations were, they would get inappropriate too. And have you had that happen? Yeah. Okay, how do you handle that?
Oh, I want to know what the details, though.
Okay.
Sorry.
I've had a group, these two ladies who came that were under the influence, a little bit.
You can just say it.
Yeah. And so they were a little bit, don't know how to word it.
Inappropriate?
Yeah, a little bit.
Like the topics they were talking about?
Yeah.
With each other
noisy.
or to you?
With each other and kind of...
With you.
With me.
They included you. You included that conversation.
Yeah. A little bit with the space. It was, moving around, touching things.
Oh.
Like supplies.
Making themselves up.
Yeah, so I did one of the ladies, and then I just let my manager know that was going on, just so she knew, and she said as long as everything was safe, then it was fine to continue, so just proceeded to do so. It was interesting. It was nothing bad. It was kind of funny, and
They were having a good time?
They were having a good time.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I know you've been you've worked at other salons and spas, and your latest venture where you're working you get to experience a little different things happening.
Yeah.
And you said like that you were surprised at, oh, I get to learn a little more of the backside of a business.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit of what you do on that?
Yeah.
So you got a unique situation, right? You're mixing doing clients and you're in your day, and then all of a sudden, you're jumping on a podcast with Doreen and myself, seeing all that, and then all of a sudden you got to run off and go fix a little something on a website, or help with an order that came through, or
social media,
and you're all of a sudden you're taking reels. And how do you find that balance in your day of, tell us a little more about all that.
It was interesting, like, working just doing aesthetics. I kind of just had, like, 1 or 2 lines to work with, and that was all I knew. Mm-hmm. And then coming here, I get to kind of hear the backstory of how these products are made, the importance of ingredients and quality. And then with the marketing side, I guess, or the website, you gotta kind of get to see how customers and clientele would take in that information. How you want to present it is really important. So just learning kind of more product knowledge about everything, comparing different lines to each other, and how they kind of all have similar aspects but just put in different ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
And I want to clarify, by here, you mean beauty cults?
Yes.
Yeah. We can say it.
We can say, yeah. So you're working for beauty cults, so you get a blend of doing aesthetics on clients, but you're also at that back end beauty supplier, learning about products, about, like you said, how clients interact with the products.
Yeah.
Do you find that learning ingredients is really important? Because sometimes that's a common thread between different lines. So if you know one ingredient, you might know how it works, regardless of what line
definitely.
It's with.
Yeah, it's important, I think, also for clients to know what they're using, and it helps if you can educate them more. That can help convince them in that they need the product or whatever it is.
Yeah, because you think that your goal would be to own your own spa.
Yeah.
One day, right?
Yeah, eventually.
And this we've had some good chats about it. That's much future, though. That's down the line.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
Tell me about it. I don't know the goal. Tell me about your spa.
I would like to have, like, my own space one day. So I think this helps to see all aspects of business, aesthetics.
And then meeting people, right? Because some do it out of their home.
Yeah.
Some do rental a room.
Different ways that it's set up.
The ways you could do it. Is there any way that you're looking that you kind of went, oh, I didn't think of that. That's very interesting about that way of doing it. Like, were you always set on a location on its own, have a spa, staff, that type of idea? Or where were your thoughts on your own business one day?
I don't know if I would have it where I'd employ and have it as a big area. I think, especially within the last few years, it's been a little easier to do it home-based, and just...
And did you know that coming out of school already?
Not really. I would see different spas and they have, like, 20 employees or whatever it is, and you kind of think...
And you hear all the challenges going on?
No.
Oh, you can say it.
Yeah, it just seemed like a little bit more doable, I think, when I was in school, and now it's kind of more realistic that it can't be that big right away, at least.
Yeah, it's stepping stones into the different goals.
Yeah. And I think coming out of in school, I kind of thought I could start it right away, but I realized it's a lot different when you get out of school. Yeah. You kind of have to help lead yourself, if that makes sense, be a little bit more independent, gain actual experience in real life. So.
Yeah, and build your clientele, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And build yourself in this industry, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to, just being aware of time, I just wanted to find out from you why you chose aesthetics. What was the driving goal or desire, passion behind your choice to get into this industry?
I've always had an interest in it. I took a course in high school for it and was really into it, and then found out about all the other services that there was. I only knew, like, facials, waxing, and then...
Oh, right, because that's all that was offered at school.
Yeah.
At high school, right? Just because of the background, yes.
Yeah, and then I heard about the course that I was going to take, and there was a lot more services that I didn't know about.
Right.
So.
Okay. So just a general kind of interest in the entire industry.
Yeah.
Was there one service when you started that you're like, this is my favorite?
I'd say facials. It started off that way.
And what is it now?
It still is. But I got a lot more into the brows, waxing, laminations, tinting, especially like within the last couple of years when everyone would wear a mask. It was kind of the only defining feature.
That's so true. So
I never thought of that.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I really like it. So
on that note, it's important to keep an open mind.
Yeah, definitely. You go in thinking that you're only going to do one thing or like one thing maybe, but you end up seeing a lot more.
Well, you also end up really cocooning yourself into one thing when, your brow client, you develop that relation, could turn into that waxing client.
Yeah, exactly.
Or could turn into your facial client.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you kind of, I think that mistake I'm going to be it's not a mistake, it's just, you've got to think about broader if you're putting yourself into it. I find a lot of people, they start out like doing everything, and before they know it, they're specializing in certain things.
Exactly.
Right? But you stay open to others.
But that happens organically too.
That's right. Yeah. Like for myself, I got more and more people with facials just because the amount of learning you got to do. So I was very passionate about it as well. And I think that's why I went that way a lot, but it kind of went that way for me because then the clients talked about it. But I mean, I did waxing, I did nails, I did makeup, I always tried to make sure my hands were involved in everything.
Yeah.
So, but I do understand how you can almost navigate to an area because there's so much to learn in this industry, and it's always ongoing, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's important to specialize in something to be your main attraction. If you
to set yourself apart.
Yeah, and then but also keep your services open so that you don't close yourself off to opportunity.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So if you could tell someone in school right now,
or considering going to school, maybe.
or considering going to school.
I actually don't know what your question is. I don't know why I interjected.
No, but that's true. It could go either way. What do you wish you knew, or someone had told you in school, that you found out, figured out, went through it here? If someone just told me, I wish someone would just, why wouldn't someone told me that?
Yeah.
Like, that was so important. What was that for you?
I think the biggest thing was to practice. Practice your service.
Oh, okay.
I think, it was told to us, of course, but you don't really realize how much you need it until you get out. And then
for the skills, technical side of it.
And just be more confident in your movement, what you're doing. Even talking to real clients is really important to practice. And then someone who's thinking of joining, I'd say even if you don't want to pursue a career in it, it's a really nice hobby to have, or even just to kind of do it on the side if it's not your main thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
But
or start out with one thing.
Yeah.
That they think they enjoy.
Right, yeah.
Because now
it opens
you
up,
don't actually have to go to school. Here in Canada, we'll be very specific to this.
Yeah.
There is no regulations in our industry.
No, that's only Alberta. Isn't it different provincials?
No, it's right across Canada. That's all gone now. Like when I went to school,
I
had to be licensed in BC. And
Saskatchewan, wasn't it?
It's all gone now. But in the States...
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, we won't get into that. But just saying that, so here we have that... I guess that benefit of doing that a la carte style of learning, like you can still work full time and take it part time, like, or if you're really passionate, think I'm just going to dive in and do the whole thing because this is definitely what I want to do. But I've met people who have taken just a small course, testing it out. I think I'd enjoy this. I think I'd enjoy working from home.
Yeah.
So they try it out with one or two services, right? And then they go from there.
Also, the financial aspect of it.
And that too.
Like, you can do one, say you start with waxing. You start that, and you slowly build, if you're transitioning careers or if you're just starting out, you can slowly build it out without having to have that big time and financial investment to go to a full-time program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for doing this, because I think it's important for people to hear.
Yeah.
It's been too long for me to know what it's like post-grad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's changed. Our society's changed a lot. I've noticed the difference from 30 years ago to 20 to 15 to 10 to the last 5 to the last 3 to 1.
Yeah, and I think it's a unique perspective, because a lot of times when we talk to people in the industry, you're always talking to people who have
a lot
years and years of experience, but that's not always relatable to somebody who's thinking about getting into the industry. So thank you for sharing your insight with us.
Thank you.
About your first year and a half?
Yes.
Nice.
Overall positive, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Thanks, Maylene.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks for listening to Beauty Babble.